welcome to the podcast. Today is actually a waxing Gemini moon. We are about to enter Gemini season, so I thought it was the perfect time to talk about Gemini. So the flower essence commonly associated with Gemini, one of the 12 healers of the original 12 Bach essences that he first found, which can correspond to the zodiac. The one for Gemini is Serato. And I will go ahead and read you the affirmation and then we'll talk about it. So, Serato, I learn to listen to my own voice. I trust my inner knowing. I find the confidence to follow what is right for me. My light is a source of truth for others. And those are the Flower Essence Affirmations by FES. So Serato is an essence for people who are commonly swayed by another's opinion or feel like they always have to reach out to an outside source for advice, for direction, to know what their next step is. It's an essence for people who aren't trusting their inner voice and their inner knowing. And it's interesting with Gemini because you have the twins. You have this idea of like two in conversation. You could think of it as like an inner and an outer. You could think of it as the social sphere. And as we are moving into summer, we're actually pulled out of our body. So in the northern hemisphere, when we're in the summertime at this time, we're sort of pulled into the external, and we really have to be strong and diligent to keep that centered connection to the internal. It's a polar opposite picture to winter. And we're going to talk about that even more as we get into Cancer season. So that will be what's up next. And I think with Gemini and also with this Serato experience, it's good to talk about what it feels like when we're in the social and when we're kind of perhaps pulled out of ourselves and sort of reflect back to other people, either reflecting what we feel like they would want to see from us, or we actually are, perhaps empathic and take on the outer qualities and internalize them in a way because we're not so connected to our own internal state. And I often associate words with Gemini, conversation, and this idea of what is true when I'm speaking versus when am I just talking in order to fill space, in order to form a connection, if I feel like I'm lacking one, or in order, again, to reflect something back to another that might not be at the core of my truth, but I know it's what they want to hear. So this last line of the affirmation, I think, goes right along with that, which is, my light is a source of truth for others. And how it is actually a gift. It's a gift when we are truly ourselves. It's a gift to the world when we're connected to the center, and it's a gift to the other person we're in conversation with when we are speaking the truth from a place of love. So the virtue for Gemini with anthroposophy is perseverance becomes loyalty. So what we continually show up for, what we continually put effort in and persevere and keep going for and keep trying, we become loyal to that. And what we were talking about before, about this tendency in the summertime to be pulled out of ourselves and into the external influences, it really does take that perseverance to keep coming back to the center and to the higher truth that we're connected to within us. So when we look back again at Serato and what we need, if Serato is something that is healing to us, finding that loyalty to what is actually in alignment with us, with our center, with love, and not just any influence around us, any stronger influence, whatever it is that's pulling us for whatever reason, be it some kind of flashy, like spiritual lifestyle concept. What is that actually rooted in? And is it in alignment with the center? Or if we're drawn out by, materialism and what society around us seems to value, community, again, this is connected to Gemini being in this sphere of the social. Is that actually what we want to be loyal to? And can we truly see it for what it is and not just kind of, get swept away, Gemini being an air sign, get blown in any direction that has the strongest gust of wind? How can our core be so strong that we are unmoved by that? So I pulled a card from the Mother Mary Oracle by Alana Fairchild for Gemini for the season that is upon us, that we are about to enter, if you're listening to this when it's published. And I pulled Our Lady of the Sacred Sun, Sun, S-O-N. So it says, Our Lady of the Sacred Sun speaks to us of a healed masculine consciousness, of the Christ awakening in men and women. This becomes possible through the love and power of the divine feminine awakened. The divine feminine holds a space for love, for acceptance of all beings, for truth and for compassion, so that a new masculinity can emerge in modern humanity. Healed masculine consciousness is what allows us to discern and make choices and to set boundaries. It allows us to say yes or no based on our own values, which are not blindly adopted from our family or society, but distilled from our own innermost feelings and heart wisdom. Wow, is that relevant to what we're talking about? And I just want to mention here, too, that when we're talking about feminine and masculine, we're not talking about, a man and a woman. It's like we have both of these within us, and the masculine being related to the force that acts, that creates change, to the sun, and it exists in our sunlight as well. So again, if you're in the northern hemisphere and we're entering summertime, you are surrounded by it. And alternatively, if you are in the southern hemisphere and winter is upon you, it is a time in which you can really feel that within. So it continues, a healed divine masculine gives us the courage to live our own life and the strength that we need to honor our individuality in making choices that feel truthful for us. It enables us to understand that our divine gift of self is meant to be lived as authentically and honestly as possible. I also want to mention here that, yes, this is really relevant to the Serato type about finding, what do I think? But I think an important part of this kind of rising of consciousness is it's not from our lower ego, though. It's from our higher self, which is, imagine this sort of pillar within us. So we're orienting from the center, which is from our self, but as we go upwards, our higher self is also connected to the divine. All right, it continues with, a healed divine masculine consciousness is freed from needing approval through popular opinion or being liked by fulfilling the expectations or conditions that others may seek to impose. A healed divine masculine consciousness is empowered to accept and honor the self, accepting one's sexuality, individuality, and particular self with all its quirks. It can do this because it understands that the divine lives in all beings, and no one is required to be the same as anyone else in order to be worthy of complete, unconditional divine love. In this next part, really think of this virtue of perseverance. It says, the divine consciousness of the Christ is willing to live truthfully even when it ruffles feathers or shakes foundations. It understands that truth will be preserved even through great transformation or upheaval of change. This consciousness is willing to live truthfully, even when that means letting go of lower vibrational relationship patterns that are based in fear and judgment, control, or power. We let go of these patterns in order to open up to new ways of relating, which are based in truth and acceptance, discernment, and freedom of choice. When we are entering more deeply into this higher consciousness, change happens. Sometimes this can be challenging as we are learning to let go of our fears and trust without condition. Even if we are struggling, we must learn to focus on the light within and stay present. Sometimes that struggle is actually the ego letting go, and we are identifying with it. It can be very compelling and believable, Yet, whilst that struggle is happening, the soul is grasping and taking in the holy breath of new life, and we're thriving spiritually, more infused with holy love and power than ever before. So again, it's talking here about that struggle of letting go the lower ego, and I do think it's important to specify and to see the difference of lower unconscious ego patterns and where we're not free, with the individuality, which is divine. We are meant to all have our own. I mean, you see it in the zodiac. We're all meant to have a different perspective and a different energy in which we enter the world. There are 12 windows in which to enter, and they're all necessary. And not only that, but our cosmic fingerprint is completely unique, where and when we were born. So not that your astrological chart defines you exactly, but it is an image of how this can work. There isn't one window or one perspective, but there is an inner truth, and there is deviation from that inner truth. And our point of light is completely unique, and it is absolutely needed. So I think this is really important as we're coming up upon a time of change, and we no longer, in some ways, can sit back into the comfort of what's known, that we don't just get drawn out into whatever is the most loud voice or fearful messaging or strongest wind current socially, culturally, but instead we connect to that unique inner pillar of light that connects all the way up to love and the divine, that is individual and free and connected to truth. All right, so bringing this back into actionable steps in our life as a place to begin, I have a Gemini journal prompt, and it's connected to this idea of Gemini being in the thoughts and the words and the learning from others. So again, it's like you've got these two things in Gemini. You've got the twins, you've got the two pillars, you've got learning from the external and connecting it to the truth of the internal, and how we can, work on this conversation between the two. So, and also connection to this idea of perseverance. Our journal prompt has to do with finding what it is that is truly calling to us, that we're truly interested in, and that what we can pursue and persevere into learning more about or mastering. So the journal prompt is, what is something you are interested in that you're curious about? Make a list of recent or favorite books you've read or research you feel drawn to searching and researching. What inner questions do these curiosities come from? Is there something you can explore and learn more about? And I think this third part of the journal prompt is really important, because it's not just on the surface, oh, what is it that we're interested in? But there's something deeper about it. There's something behind it. Like, what is the force behind that? What is that? How can that be in service to the world? So finding not just, oh, yes, this I'm interested in and drawn to this, I want to learn more about this, but also like, what is that rooted in? And what is it rooted in my inner truth? So if you have a deck of cards, if you want to pull for this question, just as a means for further reflection, the card pull is, what brings you into a state of wonder and of seeking? So for me, I got the Star as my personal card pull. What brings me into a state of wonder and of seeking? And obviously, I mean, gosh, what a relevant card, because it's connected to spirituality. I've always been really curious about the realities of the spiritual world, and of course, very literally, lately, in the past, years, and actually always, I've been very interested in the stars and how they influence us, and what's behind that, what's behind the stars. So learning more about astrology, which is, lifetimes and lifetimes of study, actually. But I see also here with the star card another message for myself personally, that perhaps you relate to as well. Especially, I'm someone with so many different interests, and I really could go off in all different directions, like a whole spoke of a wheel. I could go off in so many different directions, learning about things and practicing new crafts and practices and art forms and areas of study. But what is that central light? What is the guiding star? What is it that is behind that? Like what is in the center of it, To not just, again, sort of like spread myself thin in so many areas. It's like, oh no, it's all right. I love seeing, for example, like how things relate to each other. Like, oh, I'm so interested in these different things. And how do they relate to each other? I mean, you can see that in the form of the podcast itself. But if I'm able to keep myself centered, and wow, this is so relevant for Gemini, for Serato, for everything we're talking about, being centered and loyal, perseverance becomes loyalty, loyal to that guiding light within. Actually, all of those things can be in service of that, but I need to consciously persevere in that direction. So I've personally been connecting the 12 healers of Bach essences with the 12 flower essences by FES for the heart remedies. So I've connected Gemini, Serato, with bleeding heart. So we'll end this with our affirmation from Bleeding Heart and talk about it for a moment. Now, Bleeding Heart is a heartbreak essence, but also specifically for the quality of codependency and hanging on to a toxic relationship, like being unable to let those cords sever, and constantly being under the influence, actually, of the other's perspective and the relationship to that other being, which can be really indicative of, we have karma with so many people, and it's, it's not always pretty what wants to come out, and we can feel drawn and pulled back towards it continually. So finding a new pattern with others, which might be actually disconnecting from them, is necessary in this new path towards freedom. So our affirmation for Bleeding Heart is, I release emotional attachments to others. I fill my heart with the peace of inner strength. I ray forth my love to others as a free gift. So I think especially as we're in the realm of Gemini, in the realm of the social, and if you're entering summertime in this realm of being pulled out of yourself, that we continually find our individual freedom. What is my individual freedom in this dynamic, in this community, in this social dynamic, this dynamic in a relationship with another person? Where can I be free? And if that's coming from a place of centered truth, how is that connecting higher, up to the divine, up to love? So I hope that these concepts and messages today relate to you, and happy Gemini season if you're about to enter it. And I will see you in the next episode.